Okay, so you spent some time in South Korea,
2 years.
and can you take us through like a typical schedule? What was your day like?
Yeah. Typically, I would wake up uh, around 10 or so, and then school didn't start until 4, but I would arrive at 2. So where I worked was not a public school. It's what's called a hagwon, which means private academy in Korean. And basically, the students will finish their public school and then they will go to a subject specific private tutoring service, sometimes for 3 hours typically. And students there would do two of these on average at least twice a week. Some of them did 2 or 3 a day every day. So for these kids, they're going from to their public school 8 in the morning until 3 at night or 3 in the afternoon, and then they'll go to these hog ones. So as you can imagine, they end up doing 10 to 12, 14 hours of school a day. And the hog ones are set up by specific subjects, like I said. So mine was an English hog one, so I taught English classes 6 a day, starting at 4 and ending at 10, to middle schoolers and elementary school students.
So, what was the culture like in South Korea? Like, how was it different, and how was it similar to life here
Sure.
in the U.S.?
Well, and it's going to vary by city. Depends on where you are.
Where were you located?
I was located in a smaller city called Jinju. It's actually about Birmingham size. Imagine Birmingham without the suburbs
Okay.
in terms of population, and that's Jinju. It's about an hour away from Busan. Busan is one of the two biggest cities in Korea, along with Seoul. Seoul's in the north and Busan's in the south. So Jinju being smaller was much more Korean. Seoul and Busan have been sort of westernized. The U.S. influence there is much stronger. Um, so it was. I actually liked Jinju better because it was more authentic to me. It was a more authentic Korean experience. Um, Culture-wise, the big thing is the United States is your typical Western country, and it has those Western European influences, Christianity, um, and there's a much more rugged individualism. Whereas Korea is a Confucian society, very heavily influenced by family and community and society. Expectations on children are much higher from their parents, and the children take those expectations very seriously because they don't want to bring dishonor to their family.
So, kind of despite these harsh parental standards, at least compared to like Western American standards,
Yeah.
did you enjoy your time there?
Well, first of all, before we get too far into that, I would say that I don't necessarily think that the parental standards are completely a bad thing. I think that
Just different.
it was different, but also I think that it pushed some children to go beyond what they would do if left on their own. And I think that in the West there is this tendency to believe that it sort of this will to succeed exists where it really doesn't, and individualized sort of effort is enough to get it done. But that external pressure that can come from parents can be beneficial. Just it needs to be maybe to a more muted degree than you see in some cases in Korea.
So it worked for them. You're saying
In most cases,
okay.
there were a few exceptions, but the children that I taught writing, I focused mostly on writing because that was my educational background.
And if you don't mind me asking, what kind of writing did you do?
I was a journalist. I was a sports writer.
But what did you do in the classroom with them?
It was very heavily focused on your typical 5 paragraph essays.
Okay.
And my job was more so to teach them structure and sort of the manner of writing that you typically see in Western academic papers, because the goal of most of these children, whether it was their own goal or their parents, was for them to become qualified to go to a Western university, typically a university in America or Canada.
So you want to specifically talk about classroom differences?
Yes, the method of pedagogy is very different.
How so?
Well, culturally, it changes. Because of that emphasis I talked about earlier on authority and on that parental influence carries over to teachers. Teachers are treated with a great amount of respect.
Kind of like their parents?
Yes.
Okay.
In a great amount of respect in Korea. And sort of the expectation is that children are silent.
If you don't mind me asking, that was true for you as well as a foreigner?
Actually, it's less true for foreigners.
Okay.
Typically they're not going to have as much respect for foreigners.
Okay.
Especially ones they don't know, because most of the foreign teachers who come to Korea don't speak Korean.
Okay.
And that can hurt you. It's also a very heavily patriarchal society. So women, female teachers, and most of the teachers who go over there tend to be women.
Do you feel like knowing Korean when you go over would benefit you?
Know enough that they know you're trying.
Okay. So you don't have to know the whole language, but give it your best shot, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you're going to need to learn at least a little bit anyways, just for survival.
Of course.
But if you can call out the kids, because what the kids would do, especially with newer teachers, is they would speak in Korean in class, right? And I think they're trying to see if the teacher notices it or understands what they're saying. So if you call them out on enough cuss words that they say, for example, they start to realize that you know more than they think, and they pay more attention, and that can help. Another thing that can help is if you're accessible to them just in general. If there can be a tendency to see the time with the foreign teachers as fun time for the kids.
Okay.
And they'll be maybe too relaxed, and you need to show them that you mean business, but also that you're not as stringent as they might be used to with some of the Korean teachers, because again, what you see a lot is there's this expectation of all the classes being lectures, where the students are the very heavy focus on memorization and repetition. That's sort of typical of East Asian schools in general. And to the point where it actually caused me trouble early on as a teacher, because I was going for much more discussion-based, sort of Western style of education.
Right, because that's what we're taught to do.
Yes, and they were clearly not. They had no
experience with it
at all. To give an example, there was one time where I had some of the more advanced students, and these are students, by the way, who write better than most of the students that I've taught here at the same age level. They're more structurally sound in their writing, more grammatically correct in their writing for the most part. They struggle with articles typically. There are no articles in the Korean language. They really struggle with those. But these kids will write out a 700, 800 word essay, no problem. But there was one example where I gave them the prompt and I said, what are 3 things that you would like for your birthday? 3 presents you would like for your birthday? I'd say 90% of them could not think of 3 things.
Because they weren't asked to do those kinds of assignments.
Right.
Before.
They literally had almost no imagination. A lot of them didn't know what they wanted to do when they grew up. Or if they did, they said they wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I'd say, well, why do you want to do that? Oh, that's what my father wants me to do. Or that's what my mother wants me to do. They're not encouraged to develop that sense of imagination and creativity. I did notice with some of my students, the more advanced ones, that they got better at that over time. They are open to it if given the opportunity. And so that was one thing I learned about education in general is that if you show them the way, they'll usually go through it themselves.